Welcome to the Art for Wellness podcast. I'm Danielle Beck, and in this space, you're invited to take a seat in my studio and get into the real eye-opening, empowering, and refreshing conversations about getting started as an artist in business and all the things that come with it. If you're looking to create a life you love that works for you, avoiding the burnout and overwhelm, today's episode is for you. We're about to provide you the strategy, systems, and actionable steps needed to find true fulfillment becoming an entrepreneur brings. Why? Because if you don't control your schedule, it will control you. Finding the perfect work-life balance as an artist can be tricky, but managing your time with techniques that help you follow through with your goals not only makes you aware of how you spend your time and who you'll spend your time with, but enables you to create well-produced and well-focused work. When your time is well managed and when you have the right systems in place, you feel so much more fulfilled. I'm honoured to welcome Cristian Aluas back on the show today to discuss exactly that. If you haven't listened to episode 4 of the Art for Wellness podcast, then you may not have met the talented Cristian yet. Cristian is a full-time freelance artist and author. He has original art in the National Gallery of Canada and the Billy Island Cartoon Museum. His non-fiction, It's a Living, Surviving as a Freelancer in the 21st Century, is based on his 19 years of experience freelancing and teaching art. Cristian was born in Romania and raised in Canada. Currently, he lives and works for himself in Upper Manhattan, New York City. Hey Cristian, it's so good to have you back on the show. How are you today?
Great to be back, Danielle. That was a great introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you're back and that you're happy to be here. I believe that you have some techniques to share with us today. Can you tell us a bit more about how you approach work-life balance as a freelancer? We'd love to know how you make it work.
Yeah. Well, it started like very early on because I kind of rebuilt my career, and I used to work in animation, as I mentioned, I think on the last podcast, and then I wanted to. I started a small press, a small desktop publishing business, and I wanted to publish books and exhibit artworks and sell artworks, and that wasn't going so well at the beginning. But what I started to do was I would just consistently wake up at 8, it used to be. Now it's like 7 typically, but I don't use an alarm.
Yeah.
And I used to wake up at 8 and I would immediately start working on something. And then eventually started working online. So I would make myself useful, and eventually all those things that I was, whether it was like paintings that I was trying to exhibit, clients that I was trying to win online, all those things started to connect. And now they're pretty well connected.
Wow.
20 years this year. So I had to regiment myself. And one of the challenges that I had, kind of like not ethically, but well, I had to move back with my dad after university in those early years when I started my career. And so it was really humbling. And I was a little embarrassed, and I wanted to do something new with my career, which was following this concept of an artist that I had in my mind that was different than like, drawing cartoons in an animation studio, which paid very well. And so to prove to him that I was at least trying, and sorry if the noise is coming through, but this is New York City.
It happens.
To prove to him that I was at least trying, I would consistently work, and I'd keep my door open so he, when he'd walk by, he could see at least like he's, my kid is doing something, even though he's not making any money or anything. So so that's how my regimenting started, because I had to treat myself like an employee. So even if you don't have a business registered, I say you really have to keep hours, and you have to schedule what you're doing every day. And I kind of built my own schedule, but many years later when I was writing the book, I found Benjamin Franklin's system where he had a calendar, and every day he would wake up at like 4 or 4:30 in the morning. This was a
Yeah.
different time before internet and stuff. And I think it was even before really the Industrial Revolution, because that's where the 95 started, really, the Industrial
Yeah.
Revolution. So he would, and then he would go to bed by 10, and among those he would have a couple lunch breaks, and his last hour would be prepping for the day ahead. So that's essentially where my regimen has started. And then, and a couple of years into it, when you're young, you could just about eat anything and not gain weight, and like you feel fine. And but then I was beginning to sit a lot, and so the only way I could kind of keep my weight the same, and my metabolism, was by not eating as much. And so then I thought, why don't I just kind of like keep this body in shape a bit?
Yeah.
So that's when I started exercising, maybe like about 5, 6 years into my career. I started getting back into exercise in a more regimented way, and I exercise every single day.
So how do you find that balance between work and exercise and health and creativity?
What do you mean?
So
like what's
so
what
when
do you
it
mean by
comes to your
balance?
work, work day, how do you fit it in
Oh, okay.
around what you do?
So let me read kind of my schedule.
Yeah.
So so in It's a Living, I have my schedule written in there, and basically, here we go. 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. exercise, bathe, and eat. So it's a 2-hour process, and I am flexible with that.
Yeah.
But when I actually have like a lot of a workload, I don't miss a minute. And in fact, that gets trimmed down, because there's certain commissions that I get where I can't lose a minute. Like it's like I remember having one 2 Christmases ago, and it was a high-paying client. Found me on Facebook. Initially came for one family, actually one small family portrait, 2 people, and then added another like painting, and it had to be finished and dried and delivered by December 10th. So, and I had about 4 weeks. So, I very quickly realized I couldn't lose a minute. So anyway, so 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. exercise, bathe, and eat. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. work from the checklist, and I'll come to that. I
Yeah.
have 2 books that I keep for checklists. 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. dinner. Now I had somebody say like, "Oh, an hour and a half for dinner." Well, I use it actually as a break.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
need to have that time to relax, don't you?
Yeah,
After that's quite a long period of time to be working. So
yeah,
you have to have that downtime and just allow yourself to digest your food, because otherwise you're going into something like, what it's like after you eat dinner, you get tired, don't you, as well?
yeah. I just kind of and it, the way I lead it now. This is just a guide that I use actually for myself, but I am flexible. I don't torture myself with
Yeah.
this. So, I've taken like easily stretching it to like maybe 2 hours, if I don't have a heavy workload,
Yeah.
or if I'm really worked and I can spare the time. Uh, and if I need like that break, and I'll just like YouTube or something like that, but I don't waste too much time. Occasionally on the weekend, I'll watch a movie or something.
Yeah.
So then 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. continue working, and then I have like if I'm out networking, and on some weekdays I do go out to network. I aim to be back by 10 p.m.
Yeah.
so then I can get a good sleep. And then 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. review your day and plan your next day's checklist. Anticipate how long each task will take hourly. It helps. So when I do plan the next day, I actually note like how long I plan to spend, because now actually a lot of my commissions like I can't do in like one sitting. So I just I plan to like, okay, I have multiple clients that I'm juggling, and I go, okay, I'm going to give 2 hours to this client today. I can maybe spare only 1 hour, and I know exactly how much I can accomplish within that. And then I try to send them an email with some update, each one of them.
Yeah. And just to add on to that point,
Sure.
having a time specified to what you're doing on your checklist, that's a really good way to do it, because it helps you follow through with your goals, and it makes it that bit more realistic as to how attainable it's going to be in hindsight. No, in hindsight, in like foresight.
Yeah. Well, I talked about a lot about a visualization when you're dealing with clients. Like when you're bidding on a project, you have to visualize yourself finishing it, and like kind of like receiving an award, which is a cash, basically. So it's the same way. You have to picture yourself like completing the job tomorrow morning.
And the reason you do that is because once you've done something once, you can do it again. And that means that you're basically validating the fact that you can do something. And so when it actually comes to the task, it's a lot easier. Whereas it doesn't seem like a step too far out of your comfort zone.
It's true. That's actually a thing that you kind of have to remind yourself each day that, hey, you've actually done this the previous day. Because everything takes work. It's like, you can't take anything for granted. So, but it is an amazing thing that, like, once you've accomplished several, whether it's commissions or projects or personal goals in your life, where you've gotten some sort of reward back, then you realize, hey, I'm capable of that. And so next time I'm going to try for that and a little bit more.
And it becomes like, it just becomes a way that you progress, rather than like you see yourself doing more in the future, and you can just get this journey of actually, rather than feeling a bit overwhelmed by it, it actually helps you move forward with a lot of momentum, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah. I mean, everything's about momentum. It's going forward, with the attempt to like slow down time and enjoy your life too. So
definitely.
So because I do mention that. So then 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I sleep. Sometimes you work later. Anything between 6 to 8 hours of sleep is manageable. Certainly for me, but I need like a solid 8. I get like, puffy-eyed and things, and it's not good. It's not good for anybody. And then weekends, a relaxed list for personal projects, and make sure you schedule fun.
Definitely.
Okay. So during the week, like if you do go out for networking, like let's say, like here in New York, Thursday nights, there's a lot of gallery openings, whether it's like Lower East Side or like Chelsea. There's a number of galleries, and it's like fun to go out like and gallery hop. And, if you drink, you can have like a little free wine or whatever, or some cheese, and mingle with artists. So consider that fun. It's not like only work. I mean, I think early in your career, and certainly in mine, I was like extra serious. But now things are a little bit more effortless.
Yeah, it comes naturally after you've done it times, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
I was like that when I was stewarding at a exhibition in October. The first couple of times I was a bit like, oh, this is kind of pressure, and I realized actually I don't have to worry about it. It's actually really enjoyable when you just relax.
Yeah. So you have to remind yourself to have fun, but keep in mind your objectives.
Yeah.
Like for example, yesterday I had a busy weekend, but yesterday I went to a festival called Mocha, and it's an arts festival run by the Society of Illustrators in New York, and I had one friend exhibiting, and so I thought I'd say hi, and then there was another meetup with another group, and just for social purposes. But I had my own separate agenda. I wasn't there to like collect comic books or anything like that. I was there to like meet other artists with the intent that if I found somebody really good, then maybe they'd be an artist that could maybe teach some online courses on my website in the future. because right now all the content is by me. I have one other artist working on courses, but it's like I'm always thinking long term. So I had an agenda, but everything was like fun. So I saw my friends, and then I mingled with artists, and then we went for coffee separately, and we are just like, there was nothing really to gain except for like just comparing
Enjoyment.
projects, yeah, and having a coffee.
And it's like whatever you're planning to do around a certain event, or say a networking opportunity, you as the listeners that we have today, it could be that you have different goals as to what you want to do. You kind of got to plan it, haven't you?
You mean your goals?
Yeah, your
Yeah,
goals around it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You should always, like, I mean, that ticket is a write-off. Okay, so it's rare that I go to many events where I don't think of my career. It's kind of it's a habit. Well, because
It's
it's
a
kind of,
passion, isn't it? It's a passion that you've profited from, and in a way it's made you fulfilled in what you're doing and making an impact at the same time.
yes, but let me describe it another way, the way I perceive it
Yeah.
for myself, because it is that, Danielle, it is. But the way I view it is that, like, uh, it being my career, it's what sustains me. So it's like, if I am successful in my career, then as other aspects of my life are good,
Yeah.
then I have income, then I can go for dinner.
I
you
love
know
that. It's kind of a bit like a way of a safety net that you're creating.
yeah, yeah,
I guess that could be like a metaphor for it. And
yeah,
it's kind of like a sense of security in what you're doing and in following your passions, that you're able to do that. And I love that. It's amazing. It's
yeah. It's like
amazing.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a silly quote, and I'm not serious about this, but I'm serious about the quote. Like Dr. Phil says, you got to love yourself first before you can love someone else. But that cliche.
Yeah.
So it is a matter like of that. It's like the simple act of, like, hey, like, it's like, or like a plane rescue. They say, like, you got to put the life jacket on you first before you
Absolutely.
try it. Yeah. So it's not selfish in any way. It's just like, look, like, I want to be strong enough to help people around me, and be a benefit to society, and therefore I have to be a strong individual, and look, make my bed first.
Yeah. Love it.
So that's the outline. So 7 to 11, basically. Um, yeah. So some people say, like, that, well, they want to check out at 5, uh, and then working for yourself is not, it's not your thing, you know. But then the question remains that, like, if you want, like, then what's your purpose of your life, And most people don't have any purpose, and some of them are afraid to even sit down and try to conceive a purpose. So this conversation isn't for them.
Yeah. And I think it's when it comes to purpose, like, just sidetracking a little bit,
Mm.
most of like what I've understood from working with artists over the last couple of years is purpose is very much about personal growth and hardship. Like
Yeah,
probably about 80% of people who have kind of discovered what they want to do and their purpose has come from hardship. And that's what I
yeah,
find really interesting, because everybody has like struggles, and everybody has challenges. So like everybody's unique, and that's what makes people valuable, is that they're unique.
yeah,
And like, and I think when you like people, like especially artists, kind of sometimes struggle to realize the value that they add, and oh, but someone else is doing something similar, they're probably better than me. And that's really common with artists, and it's like, but you're unique. And it's
right. Yeah, like my friend yesterday, he wasn't having a good time. He actually left early. So he has a regular job. He works at a post office
Yeah.
many years. He worked night shifts a lot. He's got a family to take care of, So, but he's going back to school and he's trying to like transition. Uh, maybe kind of like when he retires his job, he's going to maybe teach or something. He's a very good artist, and this was his first solo comic book event in a while. He used to have a company with some friends, and he didn't do so well. He was like kind of like bummed out. He said he was unprepared, and then he said like the guy next to him who was selling all these kind of highly rendered superhero posters, which
Yeah.
are very kind of popular in America.
They are over
Uh,
here as well.
yeah, they were like selling like hotcakes, he said,
Yeah.
and so he was feeling a bit jealous like that. But I told him like, I mean, maybe it's true. He was unprepared. He should have been better prepared. But I told him he shouldn't bother with that because those guys. I mean, yeah, maybe they'll pay for their table each time, and they get encouraged. But I mean, they're not artists that are going to be remembered. So I think like working on your original content is the way to go.
Yeah.
Uh, but I also am for commissions because if you're trying to make a livelihood, commissions are very rewarding. And as you build your career, you get better and better clients, higher paying clients.
Absolutely. And the relationships are very important as well, the relationship side, and that can give you a sense of purpose in itself. Being able to, like you say in the freelance podcast episode, in episode 4, being able to work with clients on what they want. And that itself is purposeful, isn't it? And impactful for them.
It is. I forget if I like described it as like I feel like the Godfather sometimes. I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of I'm very broad. I have a lot of skills. I'm like also Liam Neeson. I have a lot of skills. I don't know. Have you know the reference?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a lot of specialized skills. So I have a couple of clients now that I always amaze with skills that I have. They'll come to me like, hey, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do a website or something? And sure enough, I do. And so I like that feeling. I like that feeling because I'm not just like a service provider where they're ordering something, I cook it up. I I solve problems, like bigger problems, and that
Yeah.
is very rewarding. Even though it's just a paycheck, and there's no residuals involved in those cases.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, it's not so much a service, but you're providing an experience.
It is an experience knowing
Yeah.
me.
And understand, like when you're saying yes to something, you're also saying no to something else when it comes to your time. Um,
That's true.
so one thing I wanted to ask you, Cristian, was how do you deal with taking breaks during your work day?
Oh, that's a great question, Danielle. In fact, it was after writing the book I adopted this method called the Pomodoro method. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it. Yes.
Okay, so I'll explain it for listeners. The Pomodoro method is this method devised by, I guess it was a guy named Pomodoro, I think.
It was by Francesco Carrillo. I can't say his name
Okay.
probably, but
All right. Thanks for correcting me. And basically, some scientists, this sounds like vague, some scientists discovered that, on average, people's concentration capabilities are about like 25 minutes,
yeah,
and then they start to like lose focus and maybe get fidgety and distracted, or maybe their eyes get tired, and so many factors, or sitting in one space, one place, they get
yeah,
irritable. So they recommend to take 5-minute breaks every 25 minutes and then longer breaks every 2 hours.
yeah,
And that's supposed to make you function optimally, like brain concentration
with productivity and as well, yeah.
productivity.
So I guess you would set a timer and time yourself for that length of
Yeah,
time?
yeah. I use my watch, so I just
Yeah.
use the watch and I go, Siri, start timer, 25 minutes, and then I work diligently for 25 minutes, and I try to just stop if I'm, especially it's easier to stop like if you're in the middle of an email or even a sketch if there's only like one line, but I try not to stretch it because it's there, like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then Siri start uh, a timer 5 minutes. And then I just like I usually stand around, walk to the window, walk to the other window, look out the window, watch people walking their dogs and things. So I can recognize most of the dogs in the neighborhood.
That's brilliant.
And I don't know their names yet, but but I know them by vision. So yeah, I just kind of relax and take in the sun.
Yeah.
And then I resume. So
Love
that's
it.
been very, very good. And at my best, I usually do like 4 hours before lunch, like solid, and then after dinner. So I guess like I finish around like 5, 6 at the latest. Then I'll definitely go another, like if it's like a lazy day, like 7, sorry, like an 3,
Yeah.
to make it 7 in a day, or like 8, depending how what's necessary. But at a certain point after 10, my eyes get really tired, especially with the light change, because then, like, even though
Yeah.
I turn the lights on, it's just like looking at the screen. It becomes difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So when it comes to like your progress with the Pomodoros, I guess do you set goals for each 25 minutes, or is it more like you assess what you're doing and you know that you're going to get it done in a certain amount of hours? Like, how would it work for what would you
Yeah. So I have like my checklist that I go
Yeah.
through. So the goals for each of those is like, let's say I write, like I have, some client, and I'm working on their book layout,
Yeah.
which is one of the things that I do. So if I know they need an update, then either, I have written down that I spend 1 hour or 2 hours, and I have a little box next to it where I check mark it. So I get a reward, even if it's just a little check mark. So then I know that, like, let's say the first hour of that 2 hour session, that's what I'll do. Like, I'll work on this project the first hour, and the second hour it'll be the other project. But then you could easily go like 3 hour stretch and then a longer 15-minute break after,
Yeah.
because that's not, it's not a big
Yeah.
deal to do that.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is something I tried to incorporate into my schedule as well. But I would forget to tick it off. I'll just go through it and do it, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I've missed my break. So sometimes you really have to discipline yourself, don't
Yes,
you?
you do have to discipline yourself to take breaks.
Yeah.
It's not about just like working like a workhorse,
Yeah,
because then you're going to crash, and it's not good for anybody. And you could, like, it
I'm
could really
guilty.
affect you. Yeah, it could affect you really poorly. Like, then you overwork, and then you don't want to do anything for days.
Yeah,
You know?
it's true. Like, and I feel like, I don't know about you, Cristian, but I love it when I do something really simple in the morning, first thing, and it makes
Yeah.
me motivated to do more. Whereas if I start off with something more difficult, I'm like, right, that's it. I've lost all hope for the day. It's got to be
Yeah,
something
yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I do. I start out with simple things, sometimes with emails,
Yeah,
but
even
I can get sucked into emails, and it kind of like sucks my creative motivation sometimes if I get too heavy into emails. But
yeah,
like this morning, for example, a client needed something really easy. Like she needed a script. She was looking for an audio, like a voice actor.
yeah,
And she had the storyboards I drew for her, but she lost the script, even though it's like in the thread. But I didn't complain to her. And it was like an easy thing. And I saw that she messaged like right after I woke up. And so within like a 20-minute span, I thought, hey, she'll really love it if I reply right away, and all I have to do is send an attachment, and not make her feel guilty, like, oh, you should have looked up in the thread or anything. So I didn't mention that. And then sure enough, she was like, online, and she saw it. She's like, thank you. So she, she loves me now. So that's a nice feeling, like you help somebody right away and you're available. And it just, I think it's nice in general for people to know that, like, hey, like I have a friend there that I'm paying. Like, but I have a friend there genuinely,
Yeah.
that's available, and I need something quick, uh, and I can kind of move on with my life because they made my life easier.
Yeah. I would always as well with emails. I know we were talking about emails. So
Mm,
to be honest, I find it really draining to do emails because you get sucked into it, and when you've got a lot going on, it can end up taking like hours going through it. So what I prefer doing is I set an amount of time in the morning, set an amount of time in the evening, and I just do
yeah.
what I can get done, the most important ones, and that can kind of help around your schedule as well. But yeah.
Yes. Another thing that I do is I turn off my phone. Like my phone is never uh, on, like the sound is never on.
Yeah.
So if I miss a call, I'll call them back. So I'm always in a form of like what they call deep work, you know. So I do sometimes shut off my laptop for emails, and I'll just work on the tablet when I'm drawing, and I don't check emails
Yeah.
um, at all, except for those. Like I'll sometimes designate certain times, but I also look at emails as a break in a way. So if I'm drawing something, then I'll like for the next 25 minutes I'll check what's going on with the emails, and if it's something important or long that I would need to reply to, what I'll do is I'll read it, just so I kind of while I'm drawing, in the next segment, in the back of my head, I'm like playing that back. How might I reply? What might I have to attach to that email?
Yeah,
So
that's
I
a
kind
really
of,
good point. Yeah, that's a really
yeah,
good point. You can prepare yourself mentally, can't you, I guess, while you're
yeah,
actually relaxing doing your art. So yeah, that's really cool.
yeah. I'm not like good at like replying impulsively, because
Yeah.
I don't think that's my best self. I think what I provide as a person, like with value, is my thoughtfulness. I think that's one of my greatest strengths. So I personally like to have time to think, because I
Yeah.
enjoy that. I like to kind of brainstorm in my mind, and formulate like the best answers for people because they have genuine questions.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? To actually communicate at like maximize that focus in what you're trying to communicate and get across what you need to get across rather than rushing through it, and it's just going to be like a mess if you rush it. So yeah.
Yeah, some people are good at that. Like one of my clients, he's a very successful doctor, big rich guy, and he's always very quick at replying, and it's gotten him many homes, and many things. But
I mean, it's good if you can do it, I guess.
yeah, it's a yeah. I don't know. I mean, I just it's just not me. So I'm more kind of laid back and thoughtful.
Yeah, I love it. So, Christian, tell us, how can my listeners find out more about your book, where you explain a lot more in depth what we've been speaking about today about time, work-life balance, and all of that?
Sure, but before we do that, can I mention my the other notebook that I use? So I use
Go for it.
two, yeah. So I use two notebooks during the day. Mostly, I use the one where it's like the scheduling, and I list like what I list also like the client projects. Currently, I have like, geez, what is it? 4 or 5 clients that that are listed. And then I have like editing my online courses as a task, and I have several check marks. And then I'm writing a book, so I have like a couple of hours during the week to do that, to make slow progress on that. And so I use that book for check marks, even my personal things. And then I have another book that is kind of brainstorming. So, for example, I finished recently a book on cartooning. It's a how-to book, and
which is amazing, by the way.
Thanks. You saw a preview, yeah.
I saw it.
Thank you. It's very dense and very informative, and but fun, as you saw. And so, for example, I outlined, the book, the table of contents, basically, and all the chapters that I would need in chronology. So I used this book for book outlines. One time I used it, I like to tell this story, even though it's kind of, I don't know what to think of it, but so I used it once for outlining this book project. I thought, how long like will each task take me? Like, like writing this many words, then editing the book, then laying out the book, then designing the cover, then publishing on Amazon, then promoting it. But mostly the production I calculated, and in the end it was like a certain amount of hours. I forget how long, but the reality was there was nobody waiting for that book. It was just like, it was a self-indulgent pet project. And I thought, you know what, that was like, in calculating that, I thought, this is not a book that anybody's really at this point waiting for. And it's self-indulgent of me to pursue it. And I kind of talked myself out of writing it because it took that many hours, So these were like little math calculations that I do in this book.
I love that. That's a really good way of separating the two, because I know what you mean. I had like a book where I have the notes that I take during the day, and then I have a book where it's like the stuff that I'm writing up for my program. So it's good to be able to separate the two, because otherwise I get mixed up and it's just not very clear as to what is actually like the stuff that you're using and then the stuff that you're just thinking about,
Yeah. And I do keep a sketchbook. That's for like, just drawing and stuff. So so that's what I do. I kind of like live off these two books.
And I guess as well, if you're not really into doing it on paper, you could use your phone notes, or you could do it on a Google Doc, can't you? And just have different Google Docs open.
You could. Some people, I guess, would do that. I mean, I guess maybe I'm old-fashioned to use these books. I don't know. I used to use Post-its. I used to use Post-its, and I had like my table.
I love Post-its. Post-its are like the best.
But it was like at one point, it was like a pile of Post-its around my desk. And then I would then every couple of months I would go through them, and then like I would have to edit and keep them, and I would just stack them, and it just eventually none of them became important, right. So It's a Living is on Amazon, and it's also on my website as digital download, and the audiobooks there too. I would probably prefer if people download it from my website. Then that way they can have courses handy there. It's at masterpieceartschool.com.
Yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes.
Yeah, so it's on Audible and it's on Amazon as well. And then there's a hardcover edition, which is nice. And then there's a paperback, and both of them are very nice quality, great. They feel great in your hands. And I started out in self-publishing and small press. I published other poets and things like that. So, I used to make my own books. So I love a good book in your hands.
You can't beat the feeling of a good book. I know like technology is become a massive thing now, but you can't beat a feeling of a book, can you?
Yeah. I'm also a book smeller. I'm like that guy, like likes to pick up a magazine and just like smell it.
Love it. Yeah, it's brilliant. And you know what? To our listeners, I would love to hear your biggest takeaways from the show today. So DM me, post it on Instagram. Let us know what you thought about this episode. And I hope you love this episode as much as I have. And I can't wait for you to implement these techniques and get really clear about what your 2022 looks like in terms of your priorities, both professional or personal. So yeah, if you love this week's episode, be sure to come back next week because I know you're going to love what we're covering. And thank you again for joining us, Cristian, for your amazing insights. Yeah, it's been lovely to have you on here again. So we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Catch you then.
Cheerio.